started. My name's John Lee with St. Louis Real Estate Investors Association. This is for our weekly update with Davis and Travellini LLC. And we have Miss Kathy Davis here. And what can you enlighten us with today, Kathy?
Okay, I don't know a lot, but I got a few things. First of all, the city is staying its same policy through the end of February, where you can get unlawful detainers, 441s, commercial evicted, but you can't do just the regular rent and possession executions yet. But we think, a friend of mine has been talking to the new presiding judge, Judge Stelzer, and we think that he's going to loosen that up March 1st. Now, anything can happen with this virus. I feel like we get good news on one hand and bad news on the other. You know, the vaccines are starting to roll out. Johnson & Johnson looks like it's going to be approved, but there's these variants coming. I mean, hard to know for sure, but we think if everything else stays trending the way it is now, that in March 1st, they're going to enlarge our ability to do executions. St. Louis County is staying the same. The presiding judge there, Judge Burton, has been saying that he's going to go to phase 1 on February 1st. And if he does that, and if numbers stay good for a couple of weeks, he'll go to phase 2. And that's when we'll be able to have evictions there. We have a friend who did a 441 eviction in the county, and it was very egregious, where the people were manufacturing meth and fentanyl, and they got arrested and bonded out immediately because nobody wants to hold anybody in jail right now. And they did a 441 to evict the people. They had several police officers testifying about these drugs and the conditions. The trial court judge, Judge Julia Lassiter, gave them a judgment for immediate possession, but Judge Burton refused to allow the sheriffs to go out and serve the writ. And in this case, the sheriffs, all they would have had to do was post the writ, and the police would have taken care of everything else. And so far, he's refusing to even allow that one exception. And this is a very bad, case of drug manufacturing in a building, police officers testifying. I mean, I don't know what else you would have. So we're disappointed in that. But maybe we'll go to phase 1 on Monday, and then maybe we'll go to phase 2 in a couple of weeks. We'll see. I was fortunate enough to be included on a call this week with Deanna Venker and Cora Faith Walker, who are on Sam Page's staff. They wanted to discuss with some landlord and tenant people about giving out the $30 million in new money that the county has gotten for rental assistance. And I had a list. When we have these group meetings, everybody introduces, and there's a brief talk from the leader about what the meeting's going to be about and that kind of thing. And then they want to open the floor. Everybody else just sits there. I start talking. I have my list. I get my points in. If I'm told we only have an hour, I want to be in the front saying. So my number one suggestion to them was that they allow the landlords to apply. We all have tenants at this point who have just refused to apply for the assistance. And, I feel very strongly about this. A lot of tenants are just not capable of sustaining the level of paperwork or the level of interest. And as long as they're not going to get evicted, they're not that motivated to apply. Some are applying. We know that some are applying. We know that this is working in some cases, but it's not working in all cases. And it's unfair, patently unfair, to tie the landlord's hands about evicting them or threatening to evict them, and then not allow them to apply for the assistance when it's really their pocketbooks who are being hurt. So that was my first point. And they were writing notes, and they seemed receptive to this. And my second point was that they should allow rent and possession judgments to be the prima facie evidence of the tenancy, the address, and the rent that's due. When we file a rent and possession action in the court, we're signing an affidavit that the facts are true. The judge is reviewing the paperwork that we sign. And even if it's a default judgment, we have to show, if there's a lease, we have to show the lease, we have to show a ledger. It's not just like we randomly get these judgments. And, when attorneys are filing them, I mean, we're technically putting our bar licenses on the line if we give information that's false. I think there would be very little fraud if we were relying on judgments rendered by a court of law. And if we could cut through the paperwork with that, where the landlord could apply and say, here's my rent and possession judgment, and get granted the rent to pay off that judgment. I mean, yeah, once the judgment's paid off, you have to release that judgment, and if they default again, you have to start over, but at least it will get some money in your hands and alleviate some of the pain that we're feeling because of the stay on executions.
Mhm.
And I also pointed out to them that we still have cases, more in St. Louis County than anywhere else, where we have judgments that were pre-pandemic. We have judgments that are going on a year old. We have judgments that are for, crazy amounts like $15,000, $20,000. Very few of those people are applying for assistance. And anecdotally, I'm thinking that some of them are not going to qualify because their default is not pandemic related. But the landlords are being damaged by the pandemic because they can't execute. So there should be some grant to landlords for those tenants in those judgments because they can't evict them. I don't want to reward those tenants for their behavior, but those landlords who are in those situations are really being penalized. And I have just a handful of files like that, but they're all bad, bad situations. I asked them about, information about what the cap would be. And, there was one woman who does tenant work in other states, and she seemed pretty clearly to be anti-landlord, but she was all about how they're gathering information and a lot of the rents are unreasonable and that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, honey, if you think rents are unreasonable now, wait until half the landlords drop out of the market and you really have a scarcity of housing. I mean, you're going to have that new building behind where I live in the Central West End, where it's $3,000 a month for a studio. That's going to seem cheap because nobody's going to want to get into this business unless they can get a lot better return and a lot more protection for their rights. I didn't say that though, but I was urging that they do a more expansive cap because there's people who've been prevented from exercising their rights, landlords, for over a year. And I also pointed out that St. Louis County is the only county in the state of Missouri that has had this for this long. Every other county has either always allowed the evictions, or if they've paused it, has paused it only briefly, or in the case of the city of St. Louis, expanded. We were allowed to have evictions, for a few weeks last summer. And I think that worked out really well because we cleared out a lot of the very old cases. So we don't have as many horrible hardship cases in the city as we do in the county. But also, working with the judges there, that they allowed us to open the door to certain kinds of evictions. That was helpful there. But they need to raise the caps on the amount of rent that's due, because if it's 10 months rent that's due now, or a year instead of 3 months, obviously that needs to be more money. And believe me, I hear all of you when you tell me about tenants who are still going to work, tenants who are just blithely refusing that. I know all that. When I get in these meetings with tenant advocates and government people, it's often just not worth it to make those points. The points that I think resonate better with them are the financial issues for the landlord, the fact that we're going to lose housing providers, we're going to lose low income housing providers, we're going to lose small landlords who are more apt to give people a break and that kind of thing. So I thought that meeting went pretty well. I asked them to let me know as soon as they have the new program set up with this $30 million, so that I can disseminate that out to all of you guys. And let's keep our fingers crossed that they allow landlords to apply for this, because I think that would be wonderful. And I also think it would be wonderful if they let you apply with a copy of your judgment, because to me, that has all the information that they need to know. And I'm sure none of you are in this category, but we have some landlords who we try to coddle along, but maybe they're elderly or, less educated or whatever, but some of them do not have QuickBooks and spreadsheets and, a lot of perfectly appointed paperwork. Some of them are, on the back of a paper bag. You can hear Christine screaming from Brentwood to Chesterfield when she has to introduce that stuff into evidence. But they're old school people that are not sophisticated, but that doesn't mean they don't get to get paid or get to have their rights. Okay, so I actually forgot to ask Chris when he was in here briefly yesterday if there was any change in Jefferson or St. Charles, so I'm not really sure. I think St. Charles is business as usual, and I think Jefferson tends to sort of boing around depending on whether anybody in the courthouse has gotten COVID. but I think he's anticipating going to court in Jefferson week after next on a regular docket, and I think their sheriff is still operating. So the other thing that I have for you is the research is continuing on our inverse condemnation taking lawsuit, where we plan to sue and ask for landlords to be reimbursed for money that they were out because they were restricted from eviction. We've got some good research going on that. We have an additional law clerk from Randall Reinker's office who's working on it. So we're buzzing along on that. Don't send any more money right now. I'll let you know if we need more help, but right now we still have money left over from the Ritt case. We're still in good shape with respect to that. So I think that's all I have. Does anybody else, anybody got anything, any questions? Oh, I should look at the chat. I see that little thing.
Yeah.
For some reason, my chat is really tiny, so I have to sort of peer at it. A tenant currently living.
Yeah, she's
Oh, that's a
tenant placement. Yeah, there's a question after that.
Oh, the Missouri Ewrap. You know, there was a woman on this call that I was on the other day who has been applying for some of her tenants for that. And she's been successful. She's applied in 8 or 9 cases and she's been successful in all but one. And she's with a large management company that has a lot of resources. But she was very unhappy with the level of paperwork and bureaucracy that was involved in this. She said she had one where the tenant's middle name was omitted from a document and they bounced everything back, and she resubmitted it and they found something else. It was a different person reviewing it and they just deleted the whole application and she had to start over. So that kind of bureaucratic pettiness needs to go away in this. So that's the only direct anecdotes I've heard about the Ewrap, the Missouri Ewrap, but I've also heard that a lot of landlords just don't want to get involved in it because you can't have filed suit. You can't file suit for 120 days. There's a lot of restrictions that they're not happy with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If anybody's had success with that Missouri Ewrap, I'd be interested to know. But I was really happy that this other landlord person was criticizing it all over the place in this call I was on, because then it wasn't me, you know, slamming it. It was somebody who had actually been involved in doing the applications and having a hard time with it. I mean, I feel like I can get hundreds of thousands of dollars in PPP money from my law firm easier than a landlord can get $3,000 in rent. You know, just because I have a tax ID number. I mean, I don't understand what the difference is here.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Wow. Is there anything we can do to help right now as far as you're concerned, Kathy?
Oh my gosh, I'm getting prizes and gifts. Who's this from?
David Cherry.
Oh, David Cherry sent me a gift. Oh, I don't think David's on this call, but that's nice.
That's good.
I'm not sure what this is.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Tell me your question again, John. I completely got distracted.
Oh, is there anything we can do to help you?
I lose it.
That's all. Is there anything to do that we can do to help you, Kathy?
Well, I think, yeah, thanks. I think that extension of the partial eviction moratorium in the city, he's interested in getting people's comments. If you want to call Jacob Kern at the Business Journal, he wants to have information. I think we are losing the PR war. The tenant advocates are out there talking about the floods of evictions and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I think that anytime you dam the river, when the dam breaks, there's a flood. You know, they hold us back from doing this. There's going to be more evictions. I mean, I hate to say this, we're sort of hoping we'll get some more, you know, before long. But we also think that, as is typical, we think it will be typical going forward. We'll get judgments. The sheriff will post. Most of the people will move. We believe that less than 10%, and possibly even less than that, of people are actually physically evicted from their units. Most of them move at some point during the process, or last ditch move when the sheriff posts the premises. So we don't think it's going to be like the Post-Dispatch seems to think there's going to be 5,000 people out on the street all at once. That's not going to happen. In addition, when they start scheduling evictions again, in the county where they haven't scheduled any, they're going to start with the oldest ones filed, the oldest executions filed, and they have X number of sheriffs. I don't think they're going to put more people on or do anything like that. So they have, for those of you who have scheduled an eviction with the county sheriff, you know how that is. You get a time slot. They might call you and move it up, but they don't do hundreds in a day. They do a handful every day. And, you know, Christine is over here at the crack of dawn filing her executions on the first day she's eligible to do it so that she gets our clients in line first. But it's when you get in line and the sheriff calls you, and I think it's a guy named Bill, and schedules you. And they're not going to be able to put out 20,000 people at once. And the other thing is, we're hoping to turn this around when we get back into court physically, but they limit how many people they put on a docket. Let's say I filed 1,000 evictions on Monday. They would not all get the court date in 3 weeks. The judges won't put that many on a docket. So, you know, they'll get spread out naturally of their own, you know, in the system. It won't be what these tenant people are saying. So to get back to my point is, anytime you have the chance to talk to somebody from the media and tell them a bad eviction story or a problem that you're having, or, you know, tell them about a bad tenant, do it.
Okay.
I have a situation that I just had that I handled for Chris because he was out with a property in the city that had been damaged in an accident that had nothing to do with the landlord. And the city condemned it for occupancy. And the landlord called the police because the one tenant wouldn't move. The tenant called some representatives from the city, and they came out and told the police that they couldn't remove her. This is opposite from what they usually do in condemnation cases. Well, I put a stop to that because I started writing emails to my friends in the city councilor's office about how, okay, city, the liability for these people being in this property when it's unsafe, condemned by you, is on you now. We're washing our hands of it. It's city liability. Your people came out and told the police not to remove her. So get ready to write the big check when she hires a lawyer after the roof collapses on her. So that put an end to that in a hurry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But, you know, oh, you can't evict me because of COVID. Yeah, but the building's falling down. It's not going to matter if you get COVID if your head's bashed in.
Way to go, Kathy.
Yeah, well, you
That's
know.
funny.
Well, sometimes I just get in that kind of mood, you know. Like, really? Really?
why
You
you're the
condemned
best.
the building for occupancy and you're telling us we can't put her out? Really?
Well, you're coming from a common sense point of view too, Kathy.
Right,